Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe, that is Stephen Howson, and we are going to be looking at a tactical version of Manchester United's dominant win over Spurs last night. Conte outclassed by Erik ten Hag. We've seen the pressing, we've seen the balls in behind, but you noticed something slightly different about the match last night, didn't you?
Yeah, so I took this picture while I was in the Stretford end last night, and the angle and the view that I have is very zoomed in at the minute, but the angle that we get in the Stretford end on the top deck is quite a tactical sort of view. And I'm doing something with Paddock FC with our fullbacks, so I took this picture to send to the first team lads to sort of show them. Now, I think United have just about joined the cool kids club of playing in a certain way. We're playing like a from the back, a 2-3-5, and I'll get into what that looks like in a minute. What's happened here, though, is this is a little bit on the narrow side. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Luke Shaw's playing well, Dalot's playing well. I'm seeing a lot of people complaining about them not overlapping, not getting into the final third. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about why. So if we have a look about how this actually looks on a 2D, so we can sort of visualise it a little bit better. What you've got this sort of triangle of defensive sort of cover. Yeah. Casemiro is doing a sensational job in there with Varane and Martinez. This is literally taken from that photograph. Yeah. So this is the position that they're all in. You've got Dalot over here, Anthony, Shaw, Sancho, all within the width of the 18-yard box. Bruno's just dropped off a little bit here. Then you've got Fred pushing up into the box. Now, what I think has happened is there's been a little bit of rotation on this left-hand side. So I'm going to move everyone into the position that I think they're supposed to be in. Like that. And that now gives us the 2-3-5. Anthony, a little bit narrow there. And actually, I think they're all a little bit on the narrow side. For this to truly sort of enter the shape that I think Ten Hag's trying to see. And if we go back to the photograph a second, I think one of the reasons it's so narrow is just look how narrow Spurs are.
I was going to say, Tottenham fullbacks here are like closer to the 6-yard line than the 18-yard line.
So you're almost wasting a little bit of the space by being in that much space. You don't need to be. But I think in a normal circumstance, if we go back to the iPad, what I would expect is Sancho, maybe even all the way out to the touchline. You see sometimes City when they're up against low blocks.
And some of the footage of Ten Hag's Ajax as well. You see Tadic and Anthony picking up the ball with their back on the touchline in 15-20 yards of space.
So this is what I would expect to see. And you could argue maybe even Bruno and Fred just coming at just a tiny little bit deeper than where they are, or potentially pushing your centre forward just a little bit forward here. That shape should be familiar to people. And if it's not, I'm going to show you exactly why it should be familiar to people. Now, what we've done is we've got the fullbacks narrow, and I noticed this against Newcastle, and I noticed this again against Tottenham. The fullbacks are coming in, and they're often getting in and around the D. They're getting involved in recycling possession, and they're getting involved in being the first people to press as well. So was the press good yesterday? It was. But as the ball was coming into this area, when we was in their half like this, it was getting stopped by both Dalot and Shaw and Casemiro. Casemiro was sensational last night, organising this. But the narrowness of the fullbacks is very interesting. Now, people talk about the inverted fullbacks that Pep would have. Obviously, this is the sort of position Cancelo picks in. And Luke Shaw, the resurgence he's had in the last few games, he's not quite playing the Cancelo role, but he's being very effective for Manchester United in it. Now, I want to show you is what Manchester City look like. So what we're seeing here from City is obviously you've got Haaland as the focal point of the team. You've got Foden, you've got Mahrez. They're typically known as wide players, but you'll see a lot of rotation between this triangle of players with City and this triangle of players with City. There's always rotation in those three positions. The three that don't is this three, typically. So what you're going to see, sometimes you'll see De Bruyne here, making underlapping runs. Sometimes you'll see him out here. We know the crossing ability that you get from here. Sometimes you'll see Walker coming here. Sometimes you'll see Mahrez and vice versa on here. If you go back to United for a second, you're starting to see how it's different positions, but it's the same area of the pitch that is occupied by people. So what they're asking Luke Shaw to do here, if we go back to where Cancelo is, he's occupying the same space. Like I said, the role is different. And the role of what Anthony's doing is different to what Walker is doing out here, and it's different to what Silva and Sancho are doing out here. But we're in the same sort of position.
We've got players doing the same types of job, even if they're doing them slightly differently.
And you've got cover centrally for when you lose the ball, you need to win it back. And you've got good width for teams that are going to sit back against you so you can try and penetrate. You've got a little bit of depth off there as well, so you're not going to get caught out. There's another team plays like this.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at that one. Liverpool. So again, Liverpool, you might see a little bit of narrowing.
Yeah.
These three are generally a little bit closer. But again, the same positions are being kept up. The width in this instance is provided by the fullbacks.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more symmetrical than Manchester City's. Manchester City's is a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
The central three, instead of this being Cancelo, it's now Henderson, Thiago, or often Thiago and maybe Henderson over to this side. The Fabinho, Van Dijk, Gomez sort of triangle is exactly the same.
Do you know with this sort of United having the inverted fullbacks, or sometimes it'll be the opposite side to where the play is being played, the fullback tucks in. Do you think part of that is because now you've got an extra person who is capable of tackling and winning the ball back in the centre of the pitch? It's not just to sort of put men there, but it's to put a tackling, defensively minded person there in case the opposition win the ball back. Do you think that's part of the thinking as well?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I think like what this three of Liverpool has been so successful at over the last few years is that they've won the ball back centrally with that three. They've pressed, they've worked hard. What you see with their fullbacks is they use their fullbacks to provide the width for them. And if we go back to what United are doing at the moment, where Shaw and Dalot are, where they're picking the ball up here, they're acting maybe not quite like Cancelo and Thiago. I don't think either of these would consider themselves in that level of footballer. But what you're getting is a recycling of possession, like a second line almost. So you're looking to try and create with this lot, and then the second line is looking to sort of recycle the ball and take it from left to right, and take it back from right and send it back over to the left. And that's what this lot have been really good at. And as I said, Luke Shaw, he found himself up here a lot of the time. Dalot found himself up here a lot of the time. Casemiro found himself a lot higher than we imagined. So it's not quite as rigid. People are going to assume this has got to be ultra rigid.
The same every time.
Louis van Gaal went. He's not here anymore. We're allowed to move from our positions at the moment. But this is the shape that I'm seeing United sort of start to take. It's only been a couple of games that we've really started to notice this, but I'm really liking it.
So we've got a few screenshots here of recent games, the Tottenham game and the Newcastle, like you said, the two games where you're kind of seeing this put together more often. This is against Tottenham. This is slightly more traditional. Dalot and Shaw, the widest 2 points on the pitch. And actually, not just are they there to kind of, stretch the play out, but as we see here, you'll take us through it, it's an attacking threat as well, having those fullbacks out wide at certain times.
That's it. So I don't think the days are numbered of you seeing the fullbacks go on the outside. This is a player in a position. Anthony's taken up the position. Dalot probably would have been, or maybe a little bit narrower than he would have hoped for, actually. But Anthony's taken up this position, which means someone needs to take that wide option. If one of the issues that United had over the last couple of years is Wan-Bissaka being so poor in possession and us basically not playing with a right-sided forward. It was either Mason Greenwood, who thought he was playing up front, Jesse Lingard, who thought he was playing up front, Juan Mata, who wanted to play up front. And then you've just got Wan-Bissaka kind of stood here, not really doing anything. Opposition defences could look in front of him and go, well, I'm not going to bother marking anything over there. But when you attack with a symmetrical front, whether it's a fullback or a winger, it doesn't matter. If it's someone competent on the ball, that's a threat. And they're stretching them this way and they're stretching them that way, you as a defence have to take notice of it. And that's one of the biggest changes for Manchester United this year, is that we are attacking down both sides. And because we're attacking down both sides, defences have to line up and cover both sides. So, this is a little bit more of a traditional way of doing it, but you've got Luke Shaw here, and you've got Dalot down out here. Obviously, Anthony's about to play the ball in. Tottenham should have picked this up with the sheer amount of numbers that they've got behind the ball, but people have switched off. So I still think you're going to see instances where teams are going to overlap. But this is showing, like, traditional fullbacks don't penetrate into the box. They sort of occupy in this kind of space up and down that touchline and don't really come any narrower from that. But as you'll see here from Luke Shaw, the ball's obviously gone out from the right-hand side. Now, Anthony's took up the role that we're talking about, that support play inside half space, while the winger, in this instance Dalot, is out there putting a cross in. A little bit narrow from the forward three of Manchester United, but what that forward three has done there is occupy the three centre-halves from Tottenham. And because they've occupied the three centre-halves from Tottenham, it's left him free at the back post, which not even Luke Shaw thought he was going to get.
It was a great shot, though, as well, wasn't it? It forced Lloris to a top corner save.
I mean, Lloris was by far man of the match for them yesterday.
Yeah, definitely.
He kept them within any sort of fight. whatsoever.
But something as well, over the last couple of seasons, I've sat and watched along, sat here on podcasts and reviews, talking about the amount of times United have been exposed by an overlapping player behind Luke Shaw or behind Wan-Bissaka, and thought, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we exposing that space? Well, we are now. You see Luke Shaw there, what's he got? 3 yards until the closest man? That's inside the 18-yard box, 2 yards minimum.
It's probably about 6 or 7, actually.
Exactly. And that sort of space, you think, finally, we're exploiting what is a more sort of modern way of attacking opposition. And obviously, Luke Shaw's not the best, kicker of the ball in the world, best finisher. But he forced a good save out of Lloris, and if that shot's been taken from the corner of the 6-yard box, then you might get yourself a goal every so often and keep that threat there.
Yeah, I think it's just purely down to the width that we're holding and the discipline with the positions, and it's not perfect. But I'll get into that when we finish. This one's against Newcastle.
Yeah.
Newcastle are stacked over to their right, our left a little bit, but we've held our width all the way down here. We've got Anthony.
Yeah.
You've got Delot inside him. That's a little bit too big in terms of the spacing, if I'm honest. But what it's done is it's allowed the opportunity for someone to run into this gap here and make Newcastle do something. But I just wanted to highlight Luke Shaw. This is Luke Shaw. This is our fullback.
Yeah.
That's where this is where rotations come in, because that's where maybe a number 8 might pick up, just underlapping in between a fullback and a centre half, exploiting that sort of space. And then, as we can see on this one, that play's broken down. We've got
Varane on the ball.
Varane almost in the opposition third. Someone's held the width on the left-hand side there. I can't quite see who that is.
I think that's Ronaldo out on the left there.
We've got space right across the front. But our fullback, again, and for once, I'm highlighting Luke Shaw's positioning where it's wild and it's not a problem. This is Luke Shaw right here.
Yeah.
In the centre of the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think that's where he's meant to be. As mad as this is, I think this is where he's meant to be.
Yeah.
Now, I thought the movement in the final third against Newcastle was lacking just a little bit. And I thought, as you can see from the spacing of Newcastle, they did not come for anything other than a 0-0 win, which they scruffily got away with. But we're starting, I did not expect this to be perfect. Certainly not immediately. But we are starting to see an identity forming in Manchester United. And I like it because it's not just a kick and rush. It's not just every man behind the ball. It's in the opposition final third. It's dominating possession. It's trying to create 2v1s, overloads, looking to exploit spaces, and it's playing football with our brain and with our feet. And I think that's a massive, massive positive. So if we go back to where United sort of lined up against Tottenham and where we can take this next, I think we've got to see the wingers really occupying. If I break the pitch down, you've got 5 zones of the pitch. You've got the wing, you've got, this is the wing, this is the half space, this is the centre, half space, wing. You've got to work within those half spaces and wings. Sancho and Anthony need to get wider.
Yeah.
They need to look to be going around the outside. Anthony's doing it really well. Sancho, I think, is still playing just a little bit within himself. I know he can take people on. And I think if he doesn't start doing it, Marcus might find himself out there, particularly if Anthony Martial becomes fit, because I think his movement in the box might find himself as a starter.
Yeah.
Fred and Bruno, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but were sensational against Tottenham. They created so many chances. They combined for goals. You can call it scruffy if you want, but they did.
Yeah, they did.
To take this to the next level, I believe that's going to be Eriksen. And Eriksen and Bruno, 2 people that are going to create chances, being there, playing off whoever it ends up being in the 9, with this sort of security behind them, I think he's going to be big for Manchester United. I would like to see what Luke Shaw's capable of doing in this area, what Delot is capable of doing in this area, because we know that they can both cross it. Can we see them start to develop that sort of half space to back post kind of cross? Because that's where the runs from Anthony into this area, if Luke Shaw's hitting one, he's probably not hitting it from there, he's probably hitting it from here.
Yeah.
But as everyone's looked this way, Luke Shaw can get one in, Anthony can come in unsighted at the back post. This is why Salah has got a goal a game. And this is why you're seeing some of the players at Manchester City just shitting goals.
And Salah and Mane would score 5 or 10 headers a season. Because when you're exposed by yourself with no one marking at the back post, you don't need to be a great header. You just need to hit the target. And like you said, short of Anthony doesn't seem particularly fruitful. But if no one's marking him, like no one was marking Luke Shaw at the back post against Tottenham, then it doesn't have to be a great header of a ball. You don't have to beat someone in the air. You've just got a free shot on goal.
Not loads for United to do to take this to the next level. I think we've seen the framework of what we could be. And I think we've got a pretty favourable run of games. Tough game against Chelsea, but from then a pretty favourable run of games where we might start to see the fruits of this before the World Cup completely interrupts it. And if I start to see this, I think United could then start hitting that next stage. I think Ten Hag's done a sensational job. This, in particular, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is the bit that needs to be worked on. And scoring a goal is the hardest thing to do in football. So I wouldn't expect that to come first. But I can see where we're going to take them steps. And I think once this becomes Eriksen, and if he's the capable backup, I think we're in a good position.
Not bad, is it? Yeah, great. Thank you for taking us through that, because you sort of notice these things changing, but you can't always put your finger quite on what is going on. So thank you for showing us exactly what's going on there. And like you said, a reason to be optimistic again. And it feels like United are a tactics first team again, rather than, you know, go out and enjoy yourself or tactics only like it was under Van Gaal.
It's identity. And I think what we're doing suits some of the players, might not suit all of the players, but we're going to find out which ones it works best under. And, you know, Bruno creating 9 chances in a single game is absolutely ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
If he keeps doing that, then, you know, we'll be in a good position.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you like the video as well. If you like this tactical stuff, leave us a comment, and thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.